Hi, my name is John, and today I'll be going through a formula to help you create a better plot in your creative writing, and it's called L.O.C.K, or LOC for short. Let's get into it. The LOC format can actually help provide a lot more structure to your creative writing. Having a clear structure to follow will benefit your writing, especially if you often find yourself not too sure what should you write next, or what character is actually important for you to continue writing about, or what you write is actually not interesting at all. It's not what you read in your spare time, and you find that it's just a little bit bland. So following this format will actually help create a much more enticing plot and ultimately improve your marks. Let's get into it. L is for lead. Imagine someone who's homeless. They don't have too many clothes and they're walking next to the opera house. They find $1 on the floor and they pick it up. Is that interesting? No, it's not. We've kind of seen that happen quite a lot in stories already. Even if that happened in real life, you wouldn't really want to look at someone who's homeless and for them to pick up $1. You just think it's quite normal for them to do that. But let's say that person, instead of them being homeless, they were dressed in a suit and tie, and there was a stack of $10,000 right next to the opera house. They walk by it and they don't even pick it up. Is that interesting? A lot more. We can probably make it even more interesting. Why should we stop here? Let's say he's not wearing any shoes and he has a yellow afro. Now things are becoming a lot more enticing. The point here is that every story should start with a compelling lead where you want to find more about. If there's a character and you don't really care about them, or they're not interesting at all, then that's completely boring. You want to make sure that it entices the reader to read more about it. This does not mean that the lead has to be sympathetic at all, or that we have to necessarily feel sorry for them. A common setup that I see for a lead character, or just any character for primary school stories, is a student. They might go through their name, their interests, maybe the grade or the school that they attend to. Is this necessarily exciting as a lead character? Not really. How do we make this more interesting? Imagine if they had a quirk. What if they had a tendency to do something that you wouldn't really expect? So imagine if there was a student at school and they loved solving mysteries. But on top of that as well, they always showed up at school in a detective outfit as if they plucked it out of Sherlock Holmes' wardrobe. Would that be engaging? I want to read more. I love detective and crime stories, and I'm interested in a little bit more fascinated. The next letter in LOC is O, and this stands for objective. So let's go back to the example. Go back to the yellow afro guy without any shoes, wearing a suit, and doesn't pick up free money. Then he picks up a parachute, wears it, and starts climbing the opera house. Engaging? I think so too. Or if we go to the student, what if they have to solve a school-wide riddle? Otherwise, every student in that school will get a failing mark. Is that serious? Very serious. Interest begins to develop. The character or the lead now has a want, a desire, an objective. The objective creates a forward propulsion and makes them keep moving so that they're not just sitting around. If it's a student or a character that's not really doing anything, they're just here and here, doing this, doing that, but he doesn't actively participate or has a goal that he wants to achieve, then it can get quite stale. Instead, we want to make sure that the objective has two clear forms. They can either get something or they need to get away from something. Typically as well, the objective here is that it can also make the reader worry. As the reader, you want to be thinking, can the lead achieve their objective? What's stopping them in their way? And this ties nicely into the next point. C is for confrontation. So if we go back to our Bumblebee man, Bumblebee because he has a yellow afro, wearing a black suit, you kind of get my drift. So essentially he's halfway up the opera house already. However, we know this because he's trying to achieve his objective. He's trying to climb all the way to the top of the opera house. Is there anything else that we can make it even more exciting for the reader? Yes, there is. Suddenly, New South Wales police are trying to chase him. So we have police surround the opera house on all fours, and to make it even more exciting. They plan, just before he reaches the top of the opera house, at the very apex of it, they plan on shooting him. Or they also get all the professional climbers in the area. They reach out to the rock climbing society, the bouldering society, and people who've used to be part of the police force, so that they can also send them above. And they also start chasing after our lead character. Suddenly things are becoming a lot more interesting. This is what opposition is. It is the obstacles that are stopping the lead from achieving the objective. We want the reader to worry that they might not be able to achieve the objective. If there is no opposition, then essentially, it's very easy for them. It's kind of stale. Oh, okay, so he wants to climb to the top, climbs to the top. Oh, big whoop. But if there's a good confrontation, then that makes it a little bit more exciting. If we go to the detective-student example that we talked about earlier, maybe there's a teacher who keeps getting in his way. Every time he's on the verge of solving a riddle or a clue, and get a couple steps forward and finding out, the school-wide riddle, he's always stopped by this teacher. He gives him detention, he holds him up after class, asks him questions, just at the most crucial moments. Suspicious? I also think so. I read in a book somewhere that an old writer once said, get your protagonist or your lead to climb up a tree. As he's climbing up the tree, throw rocks at him so that he might fall down. This makes it exciting, so that there's always obstacles that are going to be in the way for the lead to achieve the objective. This makes it a much more exciting plot. And the last letter in the L.O.C. plot format is K, and this stands for knockout. Essentially, in all sports, we love a knockout, whether it be in soccer, it's scoring a goal, or in basketball, it's doing a slam dunk, but whether it's in boxing. Yes, having a decision win is great, but if they're knocked out and their face goes on the floor and they say the 1 to 10 counts, it's very exciting. What we hate the most is a draw. And if you see this in any sport, even in boxing or any sport that I've mentioned, if they have a draw, it's kind of lame. If it's 2-2 and there's no decisive winner, then it's not very good. They want to make sure they have some extra penalty time to make sure there's a definitive winner. Otherwise, as the fan, we're not going to be completely satisfied, which is why we need to have a fantastic knockout at the end. A great ending can leave the reader feeling quite satisfied, even if your lead or your objective or your confrontation isn't the best. However, a bad ending or a very short one that doesn't end on a really good note, that can leave things on a very stale point of view, and it's just not satisfying at all. Let's go back to our examples that we talked about. Let's imagine our bumblebee man making it to the very top victoriously, or he falls down tragically and the police gets the upper hand on him. If we go to our student example, he finds out that the teacher is actually the masked villain. And he humiliates the teacher so that everyone in the school laughs at the teacher and finds out that he was the one who created this whole riddle and threatened everyone to do this, and that he lost his teaching license so he can never teach again. This is very satisfying, but if we changed it so it's not a knockout, and imagine if that student became friends with that teacher, it would just be a little bit lame. We don't really want to do that, which is why it's important to have a knockout ending. In conclusion, the L.O.C.K or L.O.C. plot format is fantastic in creating a really good structure in your creative writing and your narratives. This is particularly useful if you're going for the selective exam or you're in the early stages of high school and you haven't really been taught something like this before. Yes, you can implement this alongside other conventional formats as well, whether it be the 5 W's and the H, the rising climax, rising action, and leading into the complication. That can still be played into this as well. However, this is just an additional tool and resource that you can employ. Yes, you know what each of them stand for, but the next step here is to try to put this into practice. It's very easy to know what things stand for, but if you don't actually practice it, when the time comes, it can actually be a big issue. So practice this as much as you can, and if you have any issues, write it down in the comments below, or go on Biggs Academy.